Something is happening in the United States, and it's unfolding with a speed that's hard to ignore. It didn't start with a single disaster or a slow buildup. It arrived all at once, across different regions, in different forms, as if multiple systems were being pushed at the same time. It began in Houston, Texas, on what looked like an ordinary day. There were no hurricane alerts, no evacuation orders, no sense of danger in the air. And yet, within hours, the city was hit by sustained winds between 50 and 60 miles per hour, with gusts climbing past 80. That's hurricane strength, but there was no named storm, no organized system on the radar. Streets that had been calm turned violent almost instantly. Trees were uprooted, roofs were torn away. Power lines collapsed across neighborhoods. Along Galveston Bay and the Houston Ship Channel, seawater surged inland despite the absence of a hurricane eye or heavy rain. Boats snapped loose from docks designed to withstand storms and slammed into one another. Coastal roads flooded before residents had time to react. Scientists later called it explosive wind intensification, caused by a sudden collision between warm Gulf air and an advancing Arctic mass. On paper, the explanation made sense. What didn't make sense was the speed. There was no gradual warning, no margin for preparation. As one expert put it, it behaved like a hurricane without structure, all force and no form. While Houston was still reeling, California was waking up to a completely different crisis. In Mammoth Lakes, residents opened their doors to find their town buried under feet of snow that had fallen almost entirely overnight. Forecasts had called for ordinary snowfall after an unusually dry season. Instead, snow intensified rapidly into a relentless whiteout blizzard. Roads disappeared in minutes. Cars and homes vanished beneath a solid mass of snow. By morning, nearly 4 feet had accumulated in town, with far greater totals at higher elevations. Powerful winds combined with the heavy snowfall, creating zero visibility for hours at a time. Roads became impassable, forcing people to move through neighborhoods on foot or snowboards. Avalanche risks surged to extreme levels. Even professional ski patrollers were injured during mitigation efforts, and the resort shut down entirely. Plows couldn't keep pace. Chain controls failed as freshly cleared roads were buried again almost immediately. Power outages spread, cutting off heat and communication while temperatures continued to drop. Scientists explained it as multiple systems stacking together, loading weak snow layers faster than they could stabilize. Again, the danger wasn't just the volume, but the speed and intensity arriving all at once. For many watching both Texas and California at the same time, it felt less like coincidence and more like pattern. As the coasts were being hit, the heart of the country faced something even stranger. Across the Midwest, a massive sandstorm swept in without extended warning, turning daylight into darkness within minutes. This wasn't rain or snow, it was airborne soil, lifted from dry ground and driven forward with overwhelming force. Highways vanished, traffic halted, fine dust penetrated sealed homes, engines, and filtration systems, forcing infrastructure to shut down. Emergency crews reported breathing difficulties and dangerous conditions. Birds were seen falling from the sky mid-flight, unable to survive in the dense, abrasive air. Later, lifeless birds were found scattered across fields and roads. Scientists pointed to drought, loose topsoil, and powerful winds, comparing it to Dust Bowl conditions of the 1930s. What unsettled researchers wasn't the cause alone, but how fast it happened. What should have unfolded gradually arrived all at once. Then came something quieter, and in many ways more unsettling. Across multiple farming regions, farmers woke up to long, straight cracks slicing through their fields. These fractures hadn't existed the day before. They crossed property lines, cutting through soil that had supported crops for generations. They weren't jagged scars from erosion or chaotic breaks from earthquakes. The land looked divided rather than shattered, as if pulled apart with restraint instead of force. There was no shaking, no sound, no moment anyone could point to and say, "That's when it happened." The change was discovered, not witnessed. Geologists suggested explanations like shifting aquifers or long-term subsurface stress, but those theories didn't fully explain the speed or the uniform geometry. What made it worse was the timing. These divisions appeared during the same narrow window as the storms, the snow, and the dust. As farmland quietly split, something strange surfaced off the coast near Portland, Oregon. Fishermen reported the ocean darkening suddenly without wind or storms. The surface went still, heavy, unfamiliar. Then, rising vertically from the water, a towering pale shape emerged, taller than the fishing vessel beside it. A massive arch followed, forming a circular wave that expanded outward before fading. The movement was deliberate, controlled, unlike debris, waves, or known marine life. The footage was only seconds long, but it spread quickly online. Marine biologists stated that no documented species fit the size, shape, or motion captured. Some dismissed it as an illusion. Others pointed out that the water displacement didn't match anything familiar. What troubled many people wasn't just what appeared, but when it appeared. It surfaced during the same window when land was splitting and skies were turning hostile. Then, far from the coasts, another sign emerged, not through violence, but through absence. In the forests of Montana, clusters of evergreen trees began turning brown almost simultaneously. Entire hillsides faded from deep green to brittle, lifeless tones. Evergreens don't wither overnight. Disease spreads unevenly. Temperature shock leaves clear evidence. None of that fit. Foresters ruled out frost, heat, chemicals, and wildfire damage. The trees didn't burn or rot. They simply drained, as if something essential had been removed. In some areas, trees that appeared healthy one week were brown the next. This wasn't a gradual die-off. It was a sudden collapse in systems known for endurance. Different regions, different environments, all responding within the same season. As rivers in the Southwest continued to retreat under prolonged dryness, one stretch of water in Arizona revealed something unexpected. As water levels dropped, a perfectly circular stone disk emerged from the riverbed. Its edges were clean, its geometry precise. Symbols were etched across its surface, deliberate and intentional. Archaeologists confirmed it wasn't a natural formation. What unsettled those who examined it was the feeling that it hadn't been discovered, but exposed, as if the river had stepped aside at a specific moment. The symbols on the disk closely resembled unusual circular formations recently recorded in the skies above the same region. Earth and sky displaying similar geometry within the same season. No clear explanation connected them. The timing did. Then came movement. Across multiple regions, farmers and wildlife officials noticed something else. Animals were leaving. Cattle broke from grazing routines. Herds ignored food and water. Deer, elk, and smaller animals abandoned familiar territory. This wasn't seasonal migration. It didn't follow weather patterns or breeding cycles. It looked like flight, not toward opportunity, but away from something unseen. Animals can sense subtle changes humans can't. Shifts in pressure, vibration, electromagnetic fields. History shows similar behavior before earthquakes and tsunamis. What made this different was the scale and coordination. Different species, different regions, same urgency. Soon after, the ground itself began to fail in places people trusted most. Streets sank overnight. Sinkholes opened where pavement had looked solid. Hillsides shifted quietly, carrying trees and soil downward without sound. There were no tremors, no warning signs. Homes remained standing while the earth beneath them lowered by inches or feet. Infrastructure designed to last decades failed silently. Scientists explained the mechanics: erosion, dissolving limestone, underground voids forming over time. The process is understood, the timing is not. These collapses appeared across different soil types and climates within the same narrow window. What frightened residents wasn't just the damage, but the realization that failure had been forming unseen for years. Taken individually, each of these events can be explained in fragments: wind shear, snow loading, drought, erosion, animal sensitivity. But together, they form something else. Chaos is random. What we're seeing is convergence: air, water, soil, forests, animals, all responding within the same season, as if under shared pressure. Science can explain how these things happen. What it struggles to explain is why so many systems are reacting at once. Natural systems don't usually fail in unison unless something connects them beneath the surface. Synchronization is the anomaly. Throughout history, moments of major transition have been preceded by convergence, not one sign, but many, aligning across systems. The natural world becomes a mirror, reflecting instability humans are slow to acknowledge. This doesn't feel like panic. It feels like exposure. Weaknesses that have been forming quietly are being revealed. So the question remains, steady and unavoidable: is this coincidence or recognition? Are these isolated events or signals forming a message? Because when storms arrive without names, land splits without sound, forests fail without warning, and life itself begins to move, it forces us to look deeper. What matters now isn't fear, but awareness. Understanding why these things are happening together may matter more than ever. Share your thoughts in the comments and stay connected, because the signs unfolding next may reveal just how much has already shifted and what still stands only by habit, not by strength.